I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfilment. Today, I'm talking about another one of our Leadership Essentials series, productivity. Absolutely sacrosanct for any high-performing individual. We've got to be productive. But particularly in this ever-increasingly digitally connected world, we are less and less focused, more and more distracted. And this is one of the core frustrations and complaints that I hear from clients that I am involved with coaching and mentoring on a daily basis. I'm overwhelmed. I don't feel I'm as productive as I should be. I'm not present. All of these things bleed together. And I feel that frustration because I've lived this path, I've walked this path, I got sucked into this world during my 10 years as a CEO. I've had to work really hard to step beyond it because we're all just human at the end of the day. We can all sleepwalk into these challenges. And that is what is happening. I believe we've developed addictions, ways of working that are not serving us, that are absolutely compromising at best our productivity, but at worst, our very sense of fulfillment. We cannot achieve fulfillment if we are constantly in a state of frustration with our lack of productivity personally or professionally. And I don't think I'm alone, and I don't think there will be a single listener for that matter that hasn't at some point felt, I wish I had some more time. I'm not getting things done to the level that I want. So this episode, as I was drafting it, I was mindful not to make it a rant, not to make it a critique. Anybody that's listened to my back catalogue of episodes and also has worked with me knows that there is zero patronization in me. There is zero judgment or criticism because everything I talk about, invariably, I have succumbed to at some point in the past. My whole coaching philosophy is based on lived life experience. So with that being said, I don't want it to sound like a rant. However, we need to become aware of what's happening. So the first element of this episode is to give you a few reflections to actually be aware of, oh, I am going down the wrong path. This is actually James talking to me. I am modeling some of these behaviors. And then the second part is to give you some comfort, some confidence, and some reassurance that it doesn't have to be this way. There are steps you can take. Obviously, there's a whole myriad of things that I spend time working on with clients, but I will give you a snapshot of that today so that you don't just walk away feeling crestfallen and, yeah, that's me. I'm not productive. Everything James has talked about, I'm doing, and leave you in a disenfranchised state. No, I want you to be able to finish this episode and say, there are some tangible takeaways. I need to start implementing them today. So as I dive into that awareness piece, the first area I'm going to focus on is distraction. Digital connectivity was invented as a tool to enhance our connection and our level of productivity, and in turn, the level of our performance. And channeled and harnessed in the right way, it can, without a shadow of a doubt, do that. But, and this is the big but, our brains, irrespective of our level of intelligence, can only process so much information. Multitasking is a complete fallacy. I'm sorry to break that to you, but anybody out there says, oh, I'm a great multitasker. No, what you're actually doing is bouncing between tasks and not doing any of them to the optimal level, because we cannot focus on multiple things at the same time. Not if we want to deliver the highest level of performance in that space. So I've done a lot of reading around distraction, and I've talked about this in other episodes, but irrespective of your intelligence, as I said, if you receive a distraction, there is science now about how long it takes you to get back into the level of concentration you had prior to that distraction taking place. Now, I'm going to take an average. I've heard all sorts of numbers, and some as high as 25 minutes. But I'm taking average. I'm going to be kinder to us here today and say, let's take an average and call it 15 minutes. It takes us 15 minutes to get back into the deep level of concentration on a task after a distraction. Now, That might not sound too alarming at first glance. Okay, I was doing something, I got distracted. Within 15 minutes, I'm back on point. I'm delivering at the same level. Fair point, fair challenge. However, how many distractions are you exposed to in any given day? Now, again, I read a paper recently that said the average professional now gets 190 odd emails a day and over 80 distractions. I think that's on the light side. Perhaps not on the emails, everybody's email level will vary, but on distractions, because I'm going to just gather together some of the most common distractions. Social media alerts, getting a ping when you get an Instagram, LinkedIn message into your inbox, news alerts when you've got those set up so something pings into your phone there, text messages, WhatsApp messages, email messages. All of those come with a level of distraction because if you have your notifications on, every single one of those is clamoring for your attention. And it's not our fault. We get dopamine hits and we get releases when we check something, when we check a message, when we see if somebody has liked or commented on a particular post. Now, let's extrapolate out those number of distractions through the course of an average day and put a 15-minute penalty on each one. How many times do you glance at your phone at a WhatsApp, an email, a text, a social media message, an update, somebody's liked my post, or a news alert? The frightening and truly alarming statistic here is that when you spread those out through the day, you may never be in a state of deep concentration. And what does that mean in real terms? You may never be bringing the best of you to your professional role or personal role because you are constantly distracted. And I just want to let that sink in for a minute. That's not a criticism of your intellect or your ability. That is the same for you, for me, for everybody. If we are in a state of distraction, constantly taking 15 minutes to reset, take that through your average working day, you are never fully present and on point and bringing the best of you to your task. Why would any of us want to go to work and consciously restrict our ability to deliver the best? It's not exactly setting us up for promotion, rewards, enhanced remuneration. So that's why this awareness piece is so important for me, to make you stop and think, hang on. The second key area is email. I've done things on email in the past. I don't want to dive too deeply into this, but email is a tool. View of it like a letter. When a letter used to land on your desk, for those of you old enough to remember letters, you didn't immediately tear it open, scream for a writing pad, and immediately furiously start scribing your response and run it to the nearest post box. There was a natural lag, a natural delay. You'd read the letter, you'd compile a response, and so on. We've been hardwired into believing that an email lands in our inbox, even if you're in the middle of a task, it deserves immediate attention. Why? Why have we allowed that to come to pass? Yes, we need to periodically check in on our emails, but we don't need them open all day. We don't need to jump to the tune of the inbox if that's not your highest priority task. I had a great phrase recently that an email inbox is an organized filing system of everybody else's priorities. It's what everybody wants from you. It's not necessarily what you want. It's not necessarily aligned with your highest priorities of the day. So I think alerts and email are our two biggest distractions. We need to become aware of how we are allowing our email to disrupt our productivity and the volume of notifications and the frequency with which we touch our phones. How is that also impacting our productivity? Now, the podcasts are deliberately light touch. Some of you have never met me before. Some of you have never worked with me before, therefore. So it's trying to give reflection and actionable takeaways. Every episode is different and it may pique your interest. If you believe, actually, this is really relevant to me and I would like to explore this further, I would like to explore whether James can help me personally or whether he will speak to my boss, whether there's a scope for him to come in and work with me and my colleagues, then please do reach out because there is so much more depth, detail, tools, tips and strategies with everything I talk about that we could explore, but nobody's going to want to listen to a full day's training program on a podcast. So in terms of one of those tools that really helps with the awareness, I like to paint pictures. It's the way my brain works. I like metaphors. I like analogies. So I call this the loop of distraction. I want you to humor me here and visualize a train. And that when you board the train, that's you picking up your mobile phone. And that on that particular circuit, there are stations. And each one of those stations is a different distraction, clamoring for your attention and tailor made to disrupt and compromise your productivity. Now, I'm going to give you my illustration of what I became aware of a few years ago, because the issue with this train, in the most part, in my experience coaching hundreds of clients over the last few years, is that once we get on, we can't get off until we've gone through the stations. We are unable to simply pick up our phone, do one action, and put the phone down. Where am I going with this rambling analogy? Well, let me just talk you through it. So each station is a touch point and something you like to check. And as I'm giving you my example, start to think about, do I have a loop of distraction? And what are the stations on my track? So the first port of call for me invariably when I pick up my mobile phone, station one is my work email. That's where I'm going. But the old patterns that I recognized, I wouldn't check my work email and put my phone down. I would then go to a second email. So my first station was my personal work email. My second station was the generic customer service email for the Lonely Leader business. The third station was my LinkedIn. They were the three primary tools that I'm using for work. So I would go from work email to generic customer service email to LinkedIn. I would then go to my fourth station, which would be WhatsApp. I would just check if there was anything from my wife or family, etc., close friends. I would check the WhatsApp station. Now, that should be the end of it. You think, no. I would realize that I would then go on and just have a quick check of the news. I would go to either BBC News in the UK or Sky News, and I would just check what was going on in the news. And invariably, there'd then be a follow-on station. I would then check the sports websites. I would just have a quick glance on one of my favorite sports websites to see if there was any breaking news on the sport website. And they were my core stations. No judgment, as I said at the start of the episode. The reason I give my own personal lived life experience is to really validate that point. I'm not saying I get everything right and I've never had any issues with productivity. I realized this was my main issue. I would go work email, generic email, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, news site, sports site. Well, that doesn't sound too bad, I hear you saying. But what if I found something at those stations? It's very rare you're going to pop through, check all of those touch points and find nothing of interest. That's not how our brain's wired. We look for those dopamine hits. So invariably, jump into a work email. Oh, there's a couple of things need a quick response. Jump into the generic customer service one. A couple of things I need to forward to some staff and colleagues. Are we on top of this? Who's leading on this? Jump into LinkedIn. Oh, there's an interesting DM there from a client. I'll just send them a quick message back. Into WhatsApp. Oh, there's a message from my wife. Oh, there's something from a friend. Oh, onto the news website. Oh, there's breaking news here. I need to read this. I need to be informed. Finish off on the sport website. Oh, there's something about a passion that I'm interested in. I'll just have a read of that. So that loop of distraction, always being completed, invariably is taking 10, 20, 30 minutes, sometimes more. And yet, strangely, I became aware that I would do that regularly through the day. Now, that's not because everything in there was high priority. Invariably, it wasn't. Particularly everything from station 2. I didn't need to be in the customer service email straight away. I didn't need to be on my LinkedIn. I didn't need to be in the family WhatsApp group. I didn't need to be on the news websites. And I didn't need to be on the sport websites. Now, I'm not a particularly big social media user. I use it for work. But for many of my clients, they have the similar stations. Then they have different social media platforms. I was checking LinkedIn. They may also be going on to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And so they have more stations. And when I challenge them to track this, they become quite shocked at A, the number of stations and the amount of time that they are on that particular loop. So having given you that insight, my challenge to you is begin tracking things. Awareness is so important. What are your stations? How long are you on that train for? Going back to my earlier point, what notifications are switched on? How often do you get a notification? And don't forget, a notification could be something as simple as a good old-fashioned phone call as well, or someone knocking on your door and saying, have you got 1 minute? The classic, who's ever been in your office for 1 minute when they ask that question. But just have a little tally chart, have a little post-it on the side of your desk. Every time you feel a notification or a disruption, a call, a text, a ping, an email alert, a Teams messenger alert, any of them, total them out. Total them out for a day or two, and then add a 15-minute disruption tax on each one. And if you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, who knows, multiply by 15, your whole day's written off. Then look at your loop of distraction. Become aware of it. Oh, actually, as James says that, I've got 7, 8, 9, 10 stations. I do the same thing. Perhaps you haven't got as many, but start to track what happens when you pick up your mobile phone. How long are you on it? Now, what makes life so much easier here is we've got all the usage apps within our phones. We can look and physically see how long have I been on my phone in the day? Where is that deployed? That will give us a really clear insight into some of the stations. Maybe you like to go on YouTube, maybe you go onto other platforms. It breaks it down for you. And that awareness is step one. You won't like this. None of us do. It's like standing on the scales when we know we've put a load of weight on and we haven't been working out. It's like standing in front of the bathroom mirror when you haven't been to the gym for a long time. You're like, oh, this isn't really what I want to be looking like. We all know that there are moments of truth and realism that we don't always like to hear. How much disruption are you allowing? How much time are you spending? All of it is going to strike at the heart of your productivity. Now, before everybody tunes out and says, oh, well, James, you're not living in the real world and there's got to be some life. We can't be chained to our desk 24/7. Absolutely right. How we recover is so important. But it has to be recovery that matters to you. So I know it sounds like I'm going on a tangent, but how would you spend an afternoon off? If one of your leaders at the minute, what your boss came to you and said, take tomorrow afternoon off. I want you to focus on you, do something that matters to you, that's going to re-energize you, that's going to bring you back into work the following day with a spring in your step. How many of us would say, well, what I'd love to do is just go and sit somewhere and scroll. I think that's the best use of my afternoon off from work. I'm just going to sit and scroll and doom scroll and read the news and surf social media sites. Is that what you would do with a half day off? No. I think all of us would be thinking, oh, well, I've got some time for me. This is what I'm going to do. Now, I am not a sage. I am not the all-seeing eye, but I'll give you my perfect illustration here. I was shocked at how much time I was spending in some of those areas. A passion of mine is golf. I love to get out on the golf course, especially on my own at times, just to clear my head, switch off from work, be out in nature, and just, it's a form of almost meditation for me. I'm working at a never-ending pursuit, trying to master a game that is infuriatingly difficult, sorry. But I'm also doing something that refreshes and resets me to come back to my office and deliver at the highest possible level. But the problem with golf is it takes time. And when you take time away from the office, you feel guilty because there are other things you could be doing. So the challenge in my brain was, well, if I can be more efficient and more productive and recapture some of this wasted time from distractions, notifications, and the loop of distraction in particular, that will allow me to play golf. That's the trigger. And that was the motivator. So I used that day off concept or half day off to make you think about, what would you do for you? Are you doing that regularly? If not, I would wager the reason you're not doing it regularly is because you feel you don't have time. Therefore, let's use that as the driving force to say, I'm going to find the time by being more productive. I'll build my awareness, step one, then I'll start to take action. And when I recoup some of that time, I can reinvest it into me, which will make me better in all facets of my life. We're all wired the same. When we do something for ourselves, we feel a sense of achievement, we feel a bit of a spring, a bit of a boost to our energy, and that radiates into our personal and professional relationships. We are more present and more giving as a partner, as a parent, as a colleague, as a friend, as a sibling. Conversely, when we don't do anything for ourselves, we feel overwhelmed, lacking productivity, frustrated, lack of fulfillment. Everybody around us suffers. So I hope that's given you another hook to say, okay, I want more time to do this. That's where I want to get to. How do I do it? So let's start to talk about some of the practical, tangible things that you can do to achieve that very objective. Tip number one, audit your attention. Really develop a keen understanding of how do I use my time in the week? Where am I productive? Where am I distracted? That awareness is productivity 101, because without that foundation, we can't start to build a strategy. And equally, it removes any sense of denial. Once you look at that phone data, once you look at that reflective perspective of where are those disruptions coming from and how frequently, then you have got a no nonsense snapshot of where you are. We can always deny it. Well, it's not that bad. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm on top of things. There's a few distractions, but we're only kidding ourselves. The data doesn't lie, but you've got to audit it. You've got to get a really good understanding of where am I, and therefore where am I going to go from here as a consequence. And don't be frustrated if it's really bad, because that shock is what your system needs to make a change. We've all seen this in life when, unfortunately, if we've ever experienced a health scare, it's a shock. I need to start taking better care of myself. Guess what happens? We eat better food. We consume less alcohol. We work out more regularly. Sometimes we need that shock to the system to drive behavioral change. And I want the shock to the system to be, goodness me, I thought I was working pretty well, but look at the level of distraction and disruption I'm allowing in my day-to-day professional and personal life. Tip number 2, turn off non-essential notifications. Many of you will have been thinking this when you heard me speaking earlier in the episode. Oh, that doesn't bother me because I turn off notifications. Good for you, but it's not the norm. I'll tell you why it's not the norm. When you sit in a coffee shop or a train, how often do you hear someone's phone going bing, bing, bing? And invariably, it's louder than that with a more irritating notification tone. So it is not universally accepted to turn off the notifications. Do not dance to the tune of your phone and those notifications. Access them at a time and place that's convenient for you. We are only human, as I keep saying. If all the notifications are on, you are not going to be able to resist. It's just not possible. Ping, 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 ping. I've got to respond to the ping. It's hardwired into us. And I would add a second part to this second tip is keep your phone out of reach. Again, give yourself the best opportunity to make progress in this area. If we've got a sugar addiction and somebody lines our desk with chocolate and ice creams and cake, and it's all within touching distance, right next to a nice fresh cup of coffee, what are we going to do? Eventually, we're probably going to crack and reach for something. The phone's no different. If it's always within reaching distance on your desk, guess what? You will move towards it, even without a notification, to get that dopamine hit. Put it on your cabinet. Put it in your bag. Put it out of reach until you finish the task that you're working on. Tip number 3, batch communication. Email is not something you need to be glued to 24/7. Create windows in your day where you periodically check in and action emails. It's different for everybody. I work up a variety of strategies with every client I work with, but the overarching principle is any structure is better than a 24/7 connectivity in the screen in front of you, constantly reminding you, new task, new request, new email, and you've got it open permanently. The email should not be open permanently. Tip number 4, create focus blocks. A difficult one to crack this in a punchy, actionable podcast takeaway, but the principle is I want you to create dedicated time in your diary every single day. I call it the power hour, where you, with the best will in the world, do not let anything take that time out of the day unless it's the most important CEO request coming down to you or an emergency crisis meeting. You protect that time, do everything in your power to be able to lock in for at least 1 hour a day and focus on your highest priority tasks. They're the tasks that when we don't get to them, drain our energy, our fulfillment, and our very sense of productivity. Conversely, when we get one of those tasks done, and you can think of one in your mind now, you finish it and you go, oh, that's a relief. That reaction tells us we've just got one of our most important tasks out the way. But our diaries now, invariably, when I open them up and look at them with clients, look like some form of Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Color coordinated, jam-packed. I even see clients that have been double and triple booked, particularly in the public sector. I mean, what is going on? Somebody's booked them in, somebody else looks at it, books them in, even though they can see another meeting, and then someone has the audacity to book them in a third time. How can anybody be in 2 places, never mind 3 places at once? So you've got to take some control back in your own calendar, particularly those of you that have shared diaries and shared calendars. You need to create that time, and I guarantee, it doesn't sound a lot, if you can get 1 hour a day without disruption, without distraction, and focus on a key task, you will make significant progress, and your sense of well-being, your level of productivity will be transformed. We all deserve 1 hour a day 5 hours out of our working week. And if you're not doing it, you're doing yourself a disservice. Tip number 5, single task, don't multitask. I said it earlier in the episode, and it might irritate some people, but the concept of multitasking is a complete fallacy. People might think they're a multitasker, but they're in delusion and denial. The reality is, if we try and do two things at the same time, we will make progress, but we do neither task optimally. That is the same reality for each and every one of us. So do not fear the simple concept of focusing in on one task, turning off the notifications, switching off the email, focusing on finishing that report. Or if it is an email you've got to finish, well, finish it. Focusing on that and don't multitask. Tip number 6, limit comparison. Now, this is a dotted line away from professional roles, but the reality is social media is draining so many people's energy, disempowering their mindset, and directly contributing to a reduction in productivity and professional performance. Again, it's common sense when we hear it expressed out loud. When you see things that put you in a negative mindset, it's very hard to then step back into your professional role and deliver at the highest level of excellence. And social media, whilst it has a multitude of benefits in allowing us to stay connected with friends and family, it has also become most people's Achilles heel because it forces them into comparison. Even though we've all heard the rhetoric and we all know that very few people live their full, authentic life on social media. Very few people put all the negatives and the horrible experiences and the inefficient, unproductive days and all the challenges they're working through. Most people put the highlights reel out there of the top 1 to 5% of their life. Even though we know that, we still see posts and it puts us in a funk. So if there was one piece of advice without any judgment or patronization, it would be limit your exposure to comparison by curating the feeds and the channels that you are spending time on with regard to social media. It's a very, very simple test. If you engage in an activity, finish it and say, whoa, that felt great. I feel full of energy. I feel enthusiastic. I feel positive. Then that's something that's good and healthy for you. Conversely, as is often the case, if you come off feeling a bit frustrated, a bit down on yourself for where you are, and also frustrated that you've just allowed 20, 30, 40 minutes plus disappear down the rabbit warren of scrolling on social media, well, then that's all the data you need that this is not serving you and this is directly compromising your ability to be productive and perform at the highest level. Listen to that feedback. Tune in. What's right for one person isn't right for another. What's wrong for one isn't wrong for another. How does it make you feel? Is it serving you? If it is, great, do more of that activity. If it's not, seek to stop it or reduce it, because you deserve to be able to bring the best version of you to everything that you do. Tip number 7, protect your energy, not just your time. I make no apologies for the fact that this theme permeates practically every episode, but the reality is we have one body and mind. If we do not invest in protecting our physical and mental energy, health, and well-being, then everything suffers, whether that's our relationships, whether that's our ability to perform, our productivity, our presence in all of those areas. If we are burning out physically, if we are overwhelmed, anxious, and with a disempowered mindset, we will never truly be able to sustain high-level performance, and we will certainly not be feeling productive. So it's a non-negotiable requirement to find the habits and the practices that are going to help you process stress physically and mentally, restore energy, and maintain good health in order to be the best possible person you can be, both professionally and with all the myriad of personal roles you occupy as a partner, potentially as a parent, as a friend, as a sibling. Everything requires energy. So if you want to be productive, you can't get there without protecting that physical and mental energy first. My final tip would be reflect and refine. I'd love to say there's a quick win here, a quick fix. You can just do one or two things and you will be uber productive. But that's not life. Your role will change. Your personal responsibilities might change. All of these things are constantly challenging you and how you operate in both your professional role and personal life. So our desire to be productive never leaves us, but the challenges that we face that will try and prevent us from being truly productive are constantly shifting and evolving. So we need to keep reflecting. We started this piece talking about doing an audit, understand where our distractions are, understand where our disruptions are. Well, we need to keep that process moving forward. I'm not looking to overwhelm you with yet more things on your to-do list, but some sort of periodic check-in. It may be just 5 minutes before you shut down your computer at the end of the day to say, how efficient was I today? Did I get the things done that I aspired to do? Perhaps it's an end of week review. Perhaps it's a Sunday evening. You reflect on the previous week and you look ahead. Some people like to do it on a Friday evening. It's a way of putting a line in the sand at the end of the week, making some decisions, some reflections for the following week, and then being able to decompress and step into their weekend with a clearer head. But you will constantly be evolving your own personal style. And I hope today has encouraged you to be able to find the ways to reduce disruption, to recapture some time back, to deploy some of that time into something that you truly enjoy, and to find higher levels of productivity and fulfillment. And I just want to give you a personal anecdote going back to where I started. That loop of distraction for me hasn't just disappeared, but I have removed some of the stations. I knew full well, like everybody, when you pick the phone up, you are going to jump through those stations. But I have managed to successfully remove the sport and news websites. Now, that might seem an extreme step, but I have made a conscious decision that I would rather reduce the amount of time I spend reading about sport, reading about the news, and invest that into something that is restorative for my health and well-being. And that was the ability to get out on the golf course. If I can find myself 3 hours of savings in a week, it feels relevant to then invest that back into me. Now, people will say, oh, you can't step back from the news. You need to be connected. I'm not saying you need to go completely cold turkey, but curate your sources. I know I can find from friends, family, my wife, feedback and updates on the critical things that are taking place in the news. But by removing my access, by removing that daily station on the loop of distraction and diving into the news sites regularly, I've removed my exposure to the clickbait, negative, sensationalized stories that invariably draw your attention and impact your mood, disempower your mindset, and compromise your productivity. And my decision, as ruthless as it might sound, is I have too much desire to serve to the best of my ability with all of my clients in my professional role and with my family in my personal role to allow myself to be constantly distracted, getting lost on the loop of distraction and reading about things that are not truly relevant to my life and my work, just because it's an addiction that I've always had to click on those sites and read those articles. So I hope by sharing some authentic insight into how I've approached this space, how I've tried to drive my productivity, it will encourage you to do the same. Tech and all the associated tools that we now embrace are there to serve us, not the other way around. They are there to make life easier and make us more productive, not to allow us to become addicted and do the very reverse, disrupt and compromise our levels of productivity. As ever, thank you for listening, and I wish you the very best of luck on your continued journey of growth and development. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.